the big surprise this week on Unblocked Live, if you checked out the previous episode, we aired a 2-hour clip at the Capitol. It was aired straight without any edits. This was the big surprise for me. We saw John Sullivan.
Where's your mango stuff if you're not at FIFA? Why are you dressed in all black and why are you not repping Trump?
He knows
okay.
Look at this shit I got. I was just inside. Were you inside? No, but
I was inside. Yeah. Don't show dissension. We're all here.
I'm here to fight against them. Because I saw someone got shot. What do you got?
Rubber bullets or blood?
Someone said that you guys were lying about it, so I was like, huh.
Look, I was inside. This is. You guys think I'm lying? I dress in all black, so people don't identify. You have no logos, bro. If you have a logo, you gonna get caught. You think the cops don't know who you are? They can't find that fucking pair of Nikes you got?
You're gonna come to Texas?
Yeah.
That's far ground. It sounds sketch. Plus, people were saying that we got someone getting shot down, and it was fake news, and they were trying to incite riots. So I thought that was, look, it just matched the description, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, huh.
Okay, when people go inside and they try to rob a bank, are they dressing all black with the ski mask and shit?
Where did the person get shot?
I got you. I'm playing this game. I'm being smart. I'm trying not to get caught. That's why I have a fucking bulletproof vest underneath.
Where did the person get shot and die?
She got shot and died right before you break into like the main chambers. You know what I'm talking about? The video I showed you.
You didn't show it to me yet.
Well,
No,
listen,
the video I
that
did.
one.
Listen,
Yeah.
gotcha.
the guy who came over here was bloody, and he got blasted with pepper spray or whatever.
But that's not cool, bro.
And
Like
he's-
trying to come
he
at me
came
like that when
over
I'm
with
here
his
for
phone.
everybody else. Like
He
that.
came over
But
with
don't do it to
Oh, here, brother.
Look, just
So that was the clip that I was surprised by myself because I had watched the 2-hour clip, most of it, but this was right before the open mic outside of the east side of the Capitol, and I was not expecting to see John Sullivan there. And I also was not expecting that us playing this clip would put me in contact with John Sullivan, who I spoke to this morning. And he said that he is interested in getting his story out, and we can look at his video and show it so you can see it in the context of what he was saying as he was going from the ellipse area up to the protest and into the Capitol. And then we can talk about, because the big question is, what about outliers? What about people in a crowd that garner attention, that might have a different agenda, or might not fit perfectly into a box of what we would think of right or left? So we'll get a chance to talk about that one-on-one. And if you have any questions, please feel free to mention any comments that you might have in the chat, any questions that you might have for John Sullivan, because a lot of the big question was, do you even do this interview? Do you even talk to John Sullivan? And here's what I realized. So much of this year has been about deplatforming, that you can't talk to certain people. Well, why not? In the end, don't we want to get to the story if you're a journalist? Isn't that what the essential part of being a journalist is talking to people? This idea of deplatforming, this person cannot be heard because we've decided what that person is, either in the media or by trial by Twitter media. And I'm interested in looking beyond that and talking to people and hearing them out. And that's why this is called Unblocked Live. I'm going to show another clip for those of you who watched the live stream earlier in the week. We saw a couple of things that were surprising. One of them was this open mic. Now, this figure that I had interviewed on January the 7th, he was a fellow we now know from California, actually. And he had espoused, he said he was an extremist. He said he was anti-communist, but he also went as far as saying he didn't have a problem with National Socialism. He was in full tactical garb, but he was alone. And that always sort of stuck in my mind. How fringe is this person that I'm talking about? I'll call him the extreme. You know what? Let's give him a name. Let's call him Mission Accomplished, because that's what he's going to actually say is Mission Accomplished. But the funny thing about Mission Accomplished guy, who is an extremist, National Socialist leaning, he's against diversity. When I asked him about diversity, he had some issues with it. So a person that we would consider to be as close to a neo-Nazi as you can, you'll probably meet in your life. The question that I'm asking you as you watch this video is, does he have a crew with him? Are there people, is he just getting up on this random open mic? That may be the case, because look who speaks just before him.
Would like to say the message you would like to share. This is an open mic. Just come on up. Don't be shy.
Here's what I'm going to say. Trump is to defer the New World Order. Okay? They wanted us to aliens and tell us that they were our friends. But Trump created the Space Force so we could kick their fucking asses! Thank you.
Just a couple updates. First of all, mission accomplished, Patriots. Do you know what you did? You know what you did? History has been made here today. Simultaneously, you broke in through the front and through the rear. They could not stop you. You occupied the building. You caused them to stop what they were doing. They had to evacuate. They couldn't complete their session. Mission accomplished. Excellent. Excellent. If you want to go up there, it's kind of at your own risk. They're really being pushy. There's a lot more cops in there. They have tunnels. They brought them all in. They really got pushing. You see people coming out hurt. Do it at your own risk, go up or not. And that's what happened. Also, the mayor put in a 6 p.m. curfew. So I say, and a lot of people want to do, we're going to meet at her place at 6 p.m. and sing her some carols. What do you say? Absolutely. We're going to record everything. It's been seen everywhere. The line press is hidden over there in their little line press room. Got the new press over here. Thanks, everyone. God bless you. USA!
So that's the guy I'm calling Mission Accomplished. I couldn't tell if he had a crew with him. Afterwards, he goes to give the directions, it seems, to the mayor's house where everybody was to go after the Capitol. Originally, they were going to go to the Supreme Court for another protest, I think in the 5 p.m. hour or so in Washington, D.C. on January the 6th. Of course, that Supreme Court protest did not happen. And that's right to the east side. The Supreme Court is the east side of the Capitol. That didn't happen. So they had decided that they were going to go to the mayor's house. That, I'm not clear if that ever happened either, because there were a lot of police around the neighborhood, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did not get in. I drove up there at around 6 p.m. and there was nothing happening. But the interesting thing about Mission Accomplished guy is, for all the attention that I gave him and have been giving him, I don't know if he has a crew. I don't know if he's just some live streamer. That's what it appears to be. He mentions DLive, which is a live streaming platform and so forth. So I'm not sure how much attention do we attach to each outlier. The same question can be asked of the woman talking about space aliens right before Mission Accomplished guy shows up. She's talking about Trump in Space Force and taking on the aliens. Alien oppression, I guess. I can't tell if she's joking. I think she's serious. Whatever it is, it's a very odd thing to say. If this is your one moment at this historic moment, this is your, 20 seconds or whatever it is that she takes the bullhorn, or the open mic rather, and she talks about space aliens and Trump being the one to save us from the space aliens. This crowd does not censor anybody. There are even cheers. They're like, yeah, sure. And that's interesting. When we watch John Sullivan's video, and I just got a message from him that we're going to do John Sullivan is going to be on Friday. We're going to do a special edition of Unblocked Live Friday evening in which we will show you all of John Sullivan's video. You'll be able to take a look at that from start to finish. I think he has some edits in there already, and we can even ask him about that. But you'll see a lot of things. You'll see the QAnon shaman. He shows up. You'll see the guy with the pelts from Brooklyn. You'll be right in the rotunda. His video is probably the most visual. I've looked at a lot of video, but his video is going to take us right in there in a way that our conversation on Monday was great, and it's leading to this next conversation, because obviously that's what precipitated us being able to get John Sullivan, was seeing him in that clip that I aired just a bit earlier. So now we're going to be able to talk to him. We're going to be able to ask him, what is your affiliation? Why were you there? Were you a brother in arms with these people, or were you pretending to be? Were you, we'll be able to ask it all. And that's what Unblocked Live is all about. So if you have any questions, mention them in the chat. Be sure to subscribe. Friday night, we're going to air that video footage in its entirety and then have questions for John Sullivan. So please subscribe, youtube.com/unblockedlive. That'll be Friday evening, probably around 6 p.m. Pacific time. That would be 9 p.m. Eastern. Maybe I'll start it a little earlier because the clip is like an hour and a half. So for now, let's say 5:30 p.m. Let's say that. Literally, he just texted me right now. So I just spoke to him for the first time this morning. So let's say 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time this Friday. It's going to be interesting. And you're going to see very clearly what, from a first person perspective, what it was like, what the attitudes were like, and going straight through into the Capitol. So please let me know what questions you have in the chat. You can follow me. I'm at jleequinn. This is interesting. So I'll take any questions. The question above is for John Sullivan. And let's see. I haven't even read it. We're just going for it. Please ask about the 200 plus people he said he organized to go there to cause disruption, violence, and chaos in Capitol and in disguise Trump supporters. It was from his Discord. I have screenshots. Oh, interesting. I had never heard about this. It could be, well, you know what? We don't even have to speculate. We can ask. That's what this is about. That's what Unblocked Live is about. It's about talking to people. If people made things up, I'll just tell you in our conversation, you'll remember when I spoke with BG on the Scene, Richie McGinnis, and Ford Fisher, we were talking about the was Antifa at the Capitol riot question. And Richie brought up, well, you really don't know, definitively. There always could be somebody, because there were a couple black bloc figures. But obviously the critical mass, the thrust of the whole thing, as Ford mentioned, and I agree with, understanding Richie's point, the thrust of the whole thing, the critical mass was Trump supporters. So when we discussed that, we left the possibility for these sort of outlier figures. And we also mentioned the fact that Richie said, I could tell you Andy No is not there. Well, we can ask John Sullivan about that too, because he had tweeted what was basically pure speculation that some Asian guy was Andy No. Now, this is something that happens in Portland all the time. If you're some Asian guy, people are going to think you're Andy No. If you're in Black Bloc and so forth, they have such a fixation on Andy No up in the Pacific Northwest. I got mad dogged a couple times, and one of the first things to my mind, this was back in August, September, was like, do they think I'm Andy No? Or sometimes they just mad dog you. Sometimes they just dox you. And then we can ask Sullivan about that too. Sullivan says he was doxed himself by the Pacific Northwest crew. We're going to be able to talk about it all. You know what? And keep the questions coming. and we will ask them. And here's another question. Why was he offering a knife? And why was he yelling, burn it down? Well, see there, we're open sourcing this. I didn't know he had a knife. To be honest, this is a part of the story because I'm so focused on the populace mass. And I've been doing all of these studies about talking to the Chicago Project as far as corresponding with them. What was the makeup of the 800 rioters that went into the Capitol? Of the arrestees, they've now arrested over 300. That 1 in 10 ratio that I reported several weeks ago is still holding. Only 1 out of 10 people actually belonged to groups like the Proud Boys or, the Oath Keepers or 3%ers. So that is still holding, which means, and you'll see in Sullivan's video, that just like you saw in Stephen Horn's video in our last episode, that what the crowd is like in these long takes that are uncut, you get a much better feel. For example, that there's people saying, don't destroy anything. And as that last question asks, why is he yelling, burn it down? Other people aren't yelling, burn it down. They weren't. He's the only one I've heard saying burn it down. Burn it down was a very specific cultural cue, I would say, because for those of you who have followed this podcast, I've had 2 discussions with Kim Brown of Burn It Down with Kim Brown. Obviously, the burn it down phrasing and that rhetoric is very culturally specific. Kim Brown and I have had 2 good conversations. I'm looking forward to a third. Each time, we start to push the boundaries a little of where we can challenge each other, and that's good. That's good. The first part of this is sometimes when I talk to somebody is hearing them out. I talked to John Sullivan this morning, and a lot of that was about hearing that person out. And then you see where you can take the conversation without totally derailing it. That's my MO, is to find out really what people are about, where their foibles are, where their passions are, where their intentions are. So we're going to try to figure that out. And that's a good question. Why yell, burn it down? What's about that? What's that about? So let's see. Ask and direction picks videos in Discord and Patreon. I'm not sure what that question means, but I'll take a look again. One thing, when you guys ask questions, the easiest thing to do is put a question mark at the end so I know where to look. Because these things come through the feed, and actually my computer's a little far away from me. So, succinct questions are always best for me to get to, just as a tip. But this is going to be interesting. It's going to be a really interesting conversation. And folks, you can even go to my website, publicreport.org, and you can email me if you have any questions that come to mind. If you're watching this in the replay, a lot of people do. If any questions come to mind that you have for John Sullivan, feel free to email them to me, and we'll open source this thing and try to figure things out. I think it is newsworthy. Now, if you are a news corporation, what are you doing right now? You're probably, what's so interesting and so parasitical about our news media is they come in, much like, probably CNN did, and they just, like they did with me, for example. They came in, took my video, put it under a headline which said, Capitol rioters, U.S. says Capitol rioters intended to, assassinate elected officials, capture and assassinate elected officials, were the exact words. And then you never hear a follow-up. They changed the headline, a week later saying, retracted. U.S. did not say Capitol riot, or U.S. does not think Capitol rioters intended to capture and assassinate. Well, all you guys had to do was talk to the people on the ground, take the time. We're there, If you're CNN, if you're MSNBC, you don't know who Ford Fisher is. You don't know who BG on the scene is. You don't know who the Daily Caller team is and Richie McGinnis and all of those folks. The guy from Town Hall. We've been there. We've been watching. We've been seeing this, and so you're allowed to interview us. You're allowed to. We talk to people, but the media has been strangely absent when it comes to trying to figure out from us, the eyes on the ground, what has transpired. So if they're not going to do it, well, I guess I am. I'm going to talk to him this Friday, 5:30 p.m. Join me here, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 Eastern time for the live stream airing of John Sullivan's video and then a talk back conversation. What was he thinking? I appreciate your all's questions. And again, you can email those to me. Just go to publicreport.org. My email address is listed. You can always tweet at me. I look at my tweets at JLeeQuinn. And please follow on YouTube, youtube.com/unblockedlive. Let me see if I'm getting a message here, see if anything else has come up. I played the two clips, the two highlights. There were other highlights from the last live stream in which we showed a 2-hour clip into the Capitol. Now we're going to show another one on Friday. We will be able to really try to get to the bottom of this. This is why I talk to everybody. If you don't, you only get a half story. You get a fraction. You get narrative. If someone's trying to follow me for narrative, what would that be? Well, maybe 2 points. That the media doesn't know what the hell they're doing, that they're not giving you information from the ground. Maybe that's my narrative. And it's a true one. It's one from my experience that is very true. My other narrative would probably be that we are being pushed and polarized to a point at which we are staying outraged by this sort of technocracy where through Twitter, the constant outrage machine, the echo chambers, all of that. That would be another narrative. And that's something that I also think is true. But that does not mean if I find evidence that's contrary to what I have learned out there, that I won't accept it and say, oh, well, this goes contrary to what I've been reporting. Here's the media doing something really good. I actually tweeted, if you can believe it, I've been extremely critical about the Daily Beast specifically, because they are at the center of all of these cancel storms, whether it was Gina Carano, I haven't even looked at the latest one. What's the latest one? Sharon Osbourne. They broke the story of Donald McNeil, the New York Times reporter who used the N-word in a conversation about the N-word and around these prep school kids on a expensive field trip down to South America. And he was the New York Times representative sort of hosting these kids as a chaperone, if you will, or I don't know what the correct word is, but he was like a guest teacher who would talk to the kids and give them an idea of things. And they all wanted to talk about race, of course. And someone asked about a teenager who, when she was like 13 or 12, had used that word. And so Donald McNeil said, well, did they say blank in the context of a song, or was it in a discussion about, a book or so forth? So in saying the word, in conversation about the word, they complained. And the Daily Beast broke the story. Of course, he's fired now. There is a great Medium post. Maybe I'll put that up as well. Donald McNeil's Medium post in which he goes bit by bit. And this was the lead coronavirus reporter for the New York Times. He's a reputable source. I believe his account over the Daily Beast. Sorry, Daily Beast. So, because it's the Daily Beast's account of a bunch of kids who were offended on their trip. Teenagers. We weren't offended like that when we were teenagers. There's all these headlines. Gen X to the rescue. Come on, guys. Come on, Gen X. Come out and just say, look, this wasn't how it was when we grew up, and I can't see it helping much right now, because the way every little thing is being weaponized against people is disturbing. And we saw that with, what was the other one? The most recent one was Mumford & Sons. The Mumford & Sons guitarist / banjo player, because he said Andy No's book was brave and important, he therefore was called a Nazi on Twitter, mass Nazi storm, and told, I guess, to leave the band because he left the band and said he had to check his blind spots, and he apologized. Well, the blind spot is not his. The blind spot is ours, because we should be talking about the content of that book. Why is it considered controversial? What journalistically is ethical? What is not about certain practices? Does Andy No steal video, or does he have a bias? My big criticism is he talks about Antifa is a monolith. Now, interestingly enough, my first question to John Sullivan was, how do you answer the question, are you Antifa? And you'll notice how I phrase that. I didn't say, are you Antifa? Do you know why? Because I don't refer to Antifa as a monolith. I just don't, because it's more of a right-wing take. So I said, how do you answer the question, are you Antifa? And he actually answered it the way I would answer it, which is that Antifa is not a monolith, and these are disparate groups that, sure, you can say it's a movement, but these are decentralized, horizontally organized groups without, some sort of CEO. That's the joke everybody makes when they change their Twitter profile to CEO of Antifa, so forth. So he actually had a very honest answer about that when I asked him that question. And then we're going to ask a couple of follow-up questions. That's how this works, right? And we find out more. But not having the discussion with John Sullivan at all. Just deciding because Twitter told you what that person is. We don't learn anything by that. Just like we don't learn anything if Twitter tells us what Andy No's book is, and we don't discuss and criticize. I had more back and forth with anti-fascists this week. Some of them are what are called sock accounts, as I know. They're just, dummy accounts. They're not even trying to get followers. They're just there to say shit. So I had a couple conversations with sock accounts. What's interesting is once you have the conversation, you look back on it the next day and all the comments are erased. It's like this, it's really creepy. Like you'll see like 9 comments erased and it looks like you're just having a conversation with yourself, except it does say this comment deleted by the user and it just all the way to the bottom. So I've learned a lot. If you aren't on Twitter, if you're a journalist and you weren't covering civil unrest from a Twitter perspective, I got on late. I actually got on in July, which was late. Really late, because I missed all of June on Twitter when I was studying the civil unrest. And I got on an old account, which is now the UnblockedLive account, at UnblockedLive. You can follow me there as well. And I just kind of lurked. And then I started my J. Lee Quinn account in August, the next month. So I'm, I've known what Twitter is. I think I've been on it. I've had an account since its inception in like 2000, I don't know, a long time ago, because I was living I was really interested in tech and social media development, and I was developing apps in San Francisco at one chapter of my life, like 2007, and I think that's when Twitter had just started, and so I even got my @UnblockedLive account back then. I think it'll probably say 2007, 2008, whereas I started this account specifically I set myself up because I was getting ready to be doxxed. They wanted to dox me as soon as the New York Times article came out in August. And so I had to be ready for that. And that was just part of one guy who I can say his name is, that's the other question. If you say somebody's name, is that doxing? No, This guy, Nick Martin, he is a self-described Nazi hunter type on Twitter. Now, he was trying to prove that I was some kind of right-wing troll, and even tweeted as much or hinted it. He said, that the New York Times reporter got snookered. Snookered was his word. And then he wrote, "Too long, didn't read," at the bottom on this long thread by the anarchist publication, just completely defaming me. So it's a mess. But look, I said Nick Martin. Nick Martin, you're invited onto the show. I would love to talk to you about when you tried to paint me as a right-wing troll that snookered the New York Times. You're invited on the show. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about your methodology. I actually sent him an email and I said, hey, would you give me a call? I'd actually like to talk to you about your methodology. But the problem is these people who do this are not courageous people. They're not. They won't. I will hold my work up to theirs any day of the week, but they're not interested in having that conversation. And we've seen that time and time again. The ideologues are not willing to actually talk because they know they have the power and they know it's a false sense of power, that it's not really built on anything. It's just getting everybody to conform and go with what you're selling, the fear of whatever it is. Anyway, I also messaged, we had some requests for James Lindsay. I am not familiar with James Lindsay's work, but I contacted him and he messaged me back. So that's something that could happen in the future. I would have to research the probably vast Twitter history of James Lindsay. I'd actually spoken once to Michael Tracy as well. He and I at one point were supposed to talk. We did talk, but these are guys that I know they occupy this sort of space in the Twitterverse where they really take on a lot of this cancel culture stuff. I'm obviously super below the radar. I don't do anything. I don't say controversial things. I'm a really sober operator here. So I'm going to have a lot of research to do before either of those conversations happen, I'm guessing. But if you guys are emailing me John Sullivan questions and you want to look ahead in the game and you have other questions, feel free to throw that at me. Just like these questions just now, they educate me. As I said, how can you possibly be plugged into this crazy world of Twitter? You'd have to invest a lot of time to cover a lot of ground and not have blind spots. So please help me out and send me questions that you would have towards any of the people that I've mentioned in this episode at all. And I will look at some more of these questions. What do we got here? Media only want to push the institutional gated narrative. That's true. And the gated narrative is polarization to the nth degree. Thank you, the happy camel. You saw PT Network News interview. I did not see PT. Is that prime time? Is that what that stands for? See, this is how clueless I am. I don't have all the, if that stands for the primetime news interview with John Sullivan, the CNN one I saw, that one has been taken down, I think, by CNN. But there's like a bootleg that I took a look at. So if that's what you mean, and look, there's stuff I don't know, so please correct me if I'm wrong or even if I misunderstand an abbreviation. Someone is dividing everyone, racially, political, etc., destroying society from within. It feels like that. But I'm not certain that it's a nefarious thing. Like, I think that someone had tweeted or reposted Ibram X. Kendi. Now, I haven't read any of his books. I just know him. His reputation precedes him. Someone had tweeted something that he said about Asian Americans. And I had seen this talking point over and over again, which is, obviously, I think all of us are, I would hope, horrified by attacks on any race. But, as you guys know, part of my family heritage is Asian American specifically. like Asian American. All my grandfathers on both sides of my family are born here. Grandparents, rather, are born here in the United States. I feel an affinity, just like I feel an affinity to St. Patrick's Day today. I am part Irish. Part of my heritage is from Belfast, in Northern Ireland. So I feel an affinity to, I think everybody should, as this country, I feel people should be, proud of their backgrounds. Somebody messaged me that they're like, I have a German last name, German background, and I get shit for it. Why can't I be proud of being German? And that's a good question. People should be able to ask those questions, that that they feel a connection to their family. I mean, today is St. Patrick's Day. I started this early so I could leave early and get to the pub and get a Guinness and enjoy a holiday out in the open air of sunny Southern California, which I haven't had a chance to do in a long time. So this St. Patrick's Day couldn't have come soon enough. I hope everybody is safe. I hope everybody, is responsible. And I can't wait to finish this up and get the hell out of here and grab a beer. So let me tell you this though. When it comes to racial division, we can't go down this road. If there's one message that I have from what I have seen is this isn't working. I mean, all of this animosity, this projection, that's what it feels like, is projection. The tweet that's going around that I mentioned, and I've seen several iterations of it because everybody copies and parrots each other on Twitter, is that arm in arm, Asian Americans and blacks should not be pitted against each other, but they should turn to the real threat of white supremacy. That's what's being said on Twitter right now in response to a horrible, horrible shooting in Georgia in which 6 Asians who I believe are all women who worked at a massage parlors were shot and killed. I think the demographics, I think, are 6 and 2 when you break it down. I don't know that breaking everything down into race categories and horrible tragedies is necessary. I mean, look, we want to know, obviously, but I don't think we should run with until we know solid information about motives. I mentioned the Daily Beast. The Daily Beast has been terrible. They've been at the center of all of this. The Gina Carano thing, the cancel Donald McNeil thing. I don't know. Is there anything on Sharon Osbourne? You have to just take one of these canceled figures, Google the Daily Beast, and something will come up that's very early on in the torrent of the Twitter storm. I've figured that out by now. But the Daily Beast gave a measured story last night about saying, look, we don't know about the shooter in Georgia. It's still too early to tell. Very few clues from social media. All they knew is he liked guns and was religious. Well, welcome to Georgia. You know what I mean? There's little that people know. That might change by the time this replay is out there on this live stream. But I guess what I'm saying is wait for the evidence. Even hate crimes. I'm waiting for the FBI to give me the hate crime numbers for 2020. I requested them last month directly to the FBI. And I would like to see what those are. Has there been an increase of hate crimes? We know that there is, not just anecdotally, but a reporter from the Pacific Northwest tweeted out increases in targeted Asian hate crimes. So it's not just anecdotal. We also need to know, are there an increase of hate crimes with everybody? Has this year, 2020, the year of coronavirus and brazen street violence, raised hate crimes everywhere? I don't know. I'm just asking. And again, you can't take any of this out of context and say I'm trying to push an agenda. You guys know me. I'm not. And that's why I don't care about, that's why it says 12 views right there. Because I'm not pushing it. I'm not here to do anything other than get to the truth. And that doesn't sell. But I'm writing the book. The book might sell. The book's going to be good. I'm in it, you know? And it feels good. It feels good to know that this is all getting out there. That these conversations that we're having on Unblocked Live every Monday and Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, that these conversations are going to keep going. We're going to keep talking to people from all walks of life across different sides of the political spectrum, organizers, activists, theorists, whatever, people who care. One thing I said to John Sullivan in the conversation this morning is I'll talk to anybody who cared enough to go out into the streets in 2020. I'll talk to anybody. I will. I don't care what side you are politically, where your partisanship lies. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to platform some lunatic, but that's the thing. There aren't lunatics everywhere. The people who are going out care passionately. I want to give a plug to the South Park vaccination special. A viewer, whoever the viewer was who sent me the link to the South Park vaccination special, I had a great laugh last night. There's this hilarious bit where the kids have broken up into activist groups. One of them's pro-vaccination, and they're called the what are they called? Oh, something kids, community kids. But the community is spelled with a K, so they're called community kids, kind of like Cars for Kids, I think is the joke there. And community kids is this, they're going out to get the teachers vaccinated, and then another group is called Little Cuties with a Q for QAnon. It's the funniest QAnon spoof too. You see a Jake Angeli South Park character, the QAnon shaman, and the Q kids, the cuties, start brawling with the other group, and Butters is just running around with an American flag with an eagle on the top, just like the ones we saw on Monday on the replay on all those American flags, and with a golden eagle on top, and he's just running around and they're all fighting each other. It's the funniest thing. And the news guys get on and start fighting with each other, and the anchor's like, "Oh, so you're saying that one group is really passionate, and then the other group is really passionate with the same vigor as the other group, right? Is that what you're saying?" And the other guy's like, "Fuck you, Tom," and runs off. So it's pretty hilarious stuff. I recommend South Park right now because everybody's just been so tight and can't laugh, doesn't have any humor. But I think once we get comedians back, once we get comedians back in live shows, it's so funny. When I was in the New York comedy scene, I was like, God, these guys just think they're saving the world with their jokes, don't they? And then you realize just how dull a humorless world is. That's why I had a couple comedians on. I'm going to have more comedians on as we go through this. I'm also going to take a little break in which I'm going to curate the audio content a little better, because I have all these interviews with anarchists that go back and look at last year and kind of reflect on that and give myself some time to go see my folks, spend some time with them, go on a little vacation, relax. So I'm going to curate the audio content. If you haven't seen it, we're on Apple Podcasts, Unblocked Live. I think it's Unblocked Podcast on Apple Podcast. This is Unblocked Live on YouTube, youtube.com/UnblockedLive. So I'm going to keep working on stuff. What I was going to say, though, in the Daily Beast, I love that I just take these right turns all the time. My book's going to be like that. You know it. It's just going to go whoop, whoop, just all over the place, and somehow I'll get back to it. The Daily Beast actually gave a very sobering evaluation of the Georgia situation, but they threw in that little headline that you can get clicks on. Shooter liked gods and guns. So it's just like, it's that innuendo. Otherwise, nobody clicks on it, right? So that's the problem, is clickbait, the culture of clickbait. Shared to Southern California. What's up, Southern California? That's where I am. It's a nice day out. It's St. Patrick's Day. I'm going to do about 5 more minutes of this, and I'm going to grab a beer. But somebody is dividing us racially, but I'm not sure if they mean to. It's almost like if we're dealing with our worst instincts right now that are coming to the forefront online, and operating in this age of immediacy where we're like, click on that, get mad at that, if that's what we're dealing with, then we all have a collective responsibility to start talking about it. And that maybe it isn't just a boogeyman, and we're just, our patterns, our behaviors have become so stubborn, and our adrenaline rushes from getting mad at each other, and we don't see an alternative. I didn't see an alternative. The best thing that happened to me this year was I got furloughed, right? You know, a month into coronavirus, and I was able to run around for a year and just try to figure this story out that most people were doing a horrible job at. So, okay. Someone says the Steve Oatley on Facebook. I'll have to take a look. Thanks for the suggestion on that. I don't have, he says he had a hard time talking to Sullivan because I'll paraphrase that, doesn't like him. I don't even like to say that. I don't censor myself that much, but the show, you know, is, well, it's funny. I'm getting too worked up. He says some guy named Steve. I just don't know the show, so I don't want to slander anybody. I'll take a look at it myself. That's my motto. So I don't know how long this away from. Oh my God, surprise to me, wondered where that dude had been. Are we talking about John Sullivan still? He will be, if you're just joining us, he will be on this show, a special Friday edition, this Friday evening on Unblocked Live, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We are going to air John Sullivan's footage in its entirety, and then we're going to talk to him and try to figure out what the heck's been going on, how he decided to show up, because he's not a local, you know. All of us who showed up from out of town, you know, that's a plane trip. That's a hotel room. It's all of that. So we're going to get to the bottom of it. We're going to find all the answers. Thank you, y'all. Spread the word about this show. I like my under the radarness, but I don't love it to the extent that I'm so under the radar that, you know, that there's nine eyes on me or what have you. So please feel free to spread the word. John Sullivan will be on this Friday. We're going to try to get to the bottom of it. Publicreport.org. This has been a special early edition of Unblocked Live. I'll go another 2 minutes so that we go past the regular time, so that people just jumping on who are, do I have faithful folks that jump in right at 1 p.m.? I hope so. If you're just jumping in at 1 p.m., we started early today because it is a chance for me to go and relax and have a beer outdoors on St. Patrick's Day and tribute my Irish heritage, a small fraction. You know, sometimes all this identity is about the smallest fraction. If you go back to, I'm talking about a great, maybe another great grandfather that was from Belfast, Ireland. So we're talking in fractions, but you know what? The name endures, and so I'm going to celebrate my Scotch-Irish heritage, actually, and grab a beer and enjoy the rest of the day. That's why we started so early. Another comment. Oh my God, you snagged him. How? What? You know what? I'm going to play the clip again from earlier, and check this out. This is the clip that made it happen. We aired this with Stephen Horn, an independent young independent photojournalist from North Carolina. And this is a section from it that came out on the live stream on Monday from Stephen Horn's video, 2-hour complete video that we aired. This is a section of it and what brought me into contact with John Sullivan. This took place in the 3 p.m. hour on January the 6th in Washington, D.C.
To the university, the
stuff if you're not Antifa? Why are you dressed in all black and why are you not repping Trump?
He knows
Okay.
Look at this shit I got. I was just inside. Were you inside?
No, but
I was inside.
Don't show dissension. We're all here. We're all here.
I'm here to fight against them. Because I saw someone got shot. What do you got?
Rubber bullets or blood?
someone said that you guys were lying about it, so I was like, huh.
Look, I was inside. This is you guys think I'm lying. I dress in all black so people don't identify. You got no logos, bro. If you have a logo, you're gonna get caught. You think the cops don't know who you are? They can't find the fucking pair of Nikes you got?
You're gonna come to Texas?
Yeah.
That's a far drive.
This sounds sketch. Plus, people were saying that we got someone getting shot down, and it was fake news, and they were trying to incite riots. So I thought that was, look, it just matched the description, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, huh.
Okay, when people go inside and they try to rob a bank, are they dressing all black with a ski mask and shit?
Where did the person get shot?
I got you. I'm playing it safe. I'm being smart. I'm trying not to get caught. That's why I have a fucking bulletproof vest underneath this.
Where did the person get shot and die?
She got shot and died right before you break into like the main chambers. You know what I'm talking about? The video I showed you.
You didn't show it to me yet.
Well,
No,
listen,
the video I did.
Listen,
Yeah.
gotcha.
the guy who came over here was bloody, and he got blasted with pepper spray or whatever.
Okay.
But that's not cool, bro.
And
Like
he's-
trying to come
he
at me
came
like that when
over
I'm
with
here
his
for
phone.
everybody else. Like
He
that.
came over
It
with
don't, it don't, we're all here, brother. Look, just honestly.
All right, folks. That said more at Unblocked Live. Oh, it said www.unblockedlive.com. I'm also on Substack. I have a couple things up there. I think it's unblockedpodcast.substack.com. But www.unblockedlive.com. I've actually been fooling around on Medium too and posting some stuff there. A couple things we'll ask John Sullivan about on Friday evening for the special Unblocked Live podcast. We're going to ask him about that conversation that you just watched. I just watched it again, and each time I catch something, I think when he's talking about no logos, everybody's wondering why he's dressed in all black and if he's Antifa. And that's happened several times, you'll see. And it also, again, speaks to the tolerance of this crowd. Not only do they not kick out, the Viking guy or whatever dude with racist sweatshirt or Confederate flag, this group doesn't police anybody, even somebody who looks like Antifa, because he's dressed in black. And at the very beginning of his footage, a guy is going by on a bike and he's like, "Are you Antifa?" so he gets that a few times throughout the footage. So it was an interesting choice, a very transparent choice. I think some people might even conjecture, somebody sent me a video that was posted on another site that said, "These guys are Antifa," and it was a picture of me. And I was wearing a black mask and a black jacket. And now that I think about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, once I took that American flag bandana off, I guess I could be perceived as that. So it's kind of funny. But anyhow, folks, we're going to be able to ask all about that. What I think he was saying was, just because you have no logos on doesn't mean the police aren't going to catch you, because they were like, we heard there was a bunch of people who were logoless. That this was a rumor that was going around at the Capitol, that there was a group of people who had no logos on their shoes or anything, and that's because they were Antifa or whatever. And John Sullivan there says, "Bro, what are you talking about? Just because you have Nike shoes on or whatever, that doesn't mean, the police are going to get you if they're going to get you." But I dressed like this, I think, is what he's saying, because I'm being careful. I don't want to get caught and stuff like that. So that's what I think the gist of that conversation was. I've listened to it about 5 or 6, more than that. Gosh, I've listened to a lot of times. But you know what? We're going to be able to ask him. That's the beauty of anybody being able to come on this show, is we're going to be able to say, hey, what was that conversation all about? The guy in the megaphone, put him on blast and was like, "Hey, how come you're not repping Trump? And you're dressed in black." So we're going to be able to figure that out. Everybody, tune in Friday. Friday evening, 5 p.m. Pacific, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. I'm going to do that again. Tune in Friday, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We will show the complete footage. It's over an hour, hour and a half or so, of John Sullivan with his dialogue. I'm not going to be talking over it because what he is saying is significant, as somebody pointed out earlier. So I'm going to air that clip, and then I'm going to talk to him in the context of what we just saw. That's Friday night. Until then, enjoy your St. Patrick's Day. Thank you for joining me, Jeremy Lee Quinn, on Unblocked Live. Please follow me on Twitter and YouTube /Unblocked Live. This is always tough because it's like a weather wall. Everything's opposite for me over here. So that's why everything's so hesitant. And I'm like, that one and that way. There you go. Okay. I'll see if I can remember that. YouTube.com/UnblockedLive. @JLeeQuinn on Twitter. Everybody have a safe St. Patrick's Day. Thanks for joining me every Monday and Wednesday at 1 p.m. Special edition this Friday. I'll see you Friday night, everybody. Take care.